you're going to be an authoritarian. In my class, I do not take sides. If you want to take my class to learn how to take over a country, I will provide you with that.
L'un des plus grands experts sur le fascisme a quitté les États-Unis pour venir s'établir au Canada et enseigner juste ici à l'Université de Toronto après la réélection de Donald Trump. Son nom, c'est Jason Stanley. Pour lui, Trump est un dictateur. Puis aujourd'hui, il veut contribuer à faire de Toronto un centre de résistance contre le fascisme.
No, I just have one mug. I have a lot of cocktail glasses, though. I will eventually get mugs, but maybe I'll buy a new place first.
You're saying here in Canada?
Oh, yeah, of course. New York is a wonderful place in a fascist country. So Toronto is where I think democracy is going to be defended in the world today. Here, I'll bring my French press to the interview spot.
You left the US to come to Canada. You used to teach at Yale. You're now here. Then, why did you leave the US?
I wanted to make a political statement, and I think that this is a place where I can criticize the United States in a way that I can't criticize the United States in my home country without placing my institution into any sort of worries. I looked around the world, and I thought, which country is safest for democracy? Canada is the healthiest multiracial democracy in the world.
You've said that Trump and the movement that he represents is an existential threat. What do you mean by that?
It's obviously, as we're seeing, an existential threat to immigrants and those who support protecting their neighbors.
Après la mort de Rennie Good début janvier, un autre citoyen, Alex Pretty, un infirmier de 37 ans, a été abattu par des agents fédéraux en fin de semaine.
Literally, we've seen 2 dead so far. We've seen many immigrants are in hiding right now. Their children are in hiding, and my father was in hiding, so I know what that means. I'm Jewish. Both my parents were raised in Europe. My father was 6 and a half when he left Berlin in July 1939. His mother didn't let him out on the street. Like immigrants in the United States, immigrants are staying home. They're not sending their kids to school.
Attendance in the district has dropped nearly 1/3 since the surge began.
We had a mother that arrived with her child who is legally in the United States, who was terrified and was followed by 2 ICE vehicles.
So all of that happened with my father in Berlin is happening to immigrants in the United States because the United States is a fascist country.
Why are you saying that the US is a fascist state? Isn't that
Pure.
Exaggerated? How do you kind of explain that?
Because they have an autocrat not bound by the rule of law. He explicitly tells his government to target his political opponents. He has ICE, that is one of the most highly funded military forces in the world. Trump, he said, white people are discriminated against. There's white genocide. The only immigrants allowed in, asylum seekers allowed in are Afrikaners.
Trump administration is cutting the number of refugees and is reserving most of the slots for white South Africans.
It's the structure of fascism that privileges white people, that is xenophobic. We have a vast system of concentration camps being erected right now for non-white immigrants. Look at Alligator Alcatraz in Florida.
Why do you call them concentration camps?
A concentration camp is a zone of lawlessness where you can't survey what's going on. You can't send people in. Journalists don't go in. We don't know what's happening in these places.
One of the things that we heard that was so concerning was the use of something called the box. And people are placed in this box as a form of punishment.
The state targets black journalists, black politicians. It targets black equality.
The president also taking aim at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. The president said the museum is, quote, out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is.
He wants to take over Canada.
What I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state.
He wants to take over Greenland. So imperialism, he's expansionist. He uses arbitrary state power inside the United States to target political opposition, to target minority groups, immigrants, and he uses state arbitrary military power in clear violation of international law outside the United States. Look at Venezuela.
Les États-Unis viennent de frapper le pays après des semaines de menaces. Washington affirme que Nicolas Maduro et son épouse sont désormais détenus par les États-Unis.
He partners with other autocrats like Putin.
The U.S. is based on a very complex system of checks and balances. There are branches of power that are built for power not to be directed to only one person. What do you make of that system of checks and balances right now?
It's collapsing. The Supreme Court has this shadow docket where they just pass things through that they don't discuss. They overturned lower court's decisions against Trump, against the Trump regime.
The Supreme Court has granted the Trump administration requests to block lower court rulings in more than 70% of its emergency cases brought by the administration.
They also ruled that the president has total immunity for official acts in office, where that's very broad. What's happening is extreme. When what is happening is extreme, the description of what is happening must be extreme. And it's very important to call it like it is. We're at the arresting journalists phase of fascism.
You're talking here about Don Lemon Wright and Georgia Fort that were arrested because of a church protest that they were covering.
The DOJ sent a team of federal agents to arrest me in the middle of the night for something that I'd been doing for the last 30 years, and that is covering the news.
They've been released?
They've been released because we don't have a full capture of the judiciary.
What does that mean?
Every judge is a Trump judge. There are plenty of lower courts that still follow the rule of law. Fascism has not won over everyone in the United States.
You've previously called the U.S. administration's takeover of the government by Donald Trump as a coup. Yet Donald Trump was democratically elected, he won the popular vote, a lot of people are behind him in his politics in the US. Why say that it was a coup?
Hitler won, the Nazi Party won a democratic election. They were massively supported by the German people. It is a coup because Trump has ignored many, many court decisions. ICE has ignored court decisions. Steve Bannon just said that ICE will patrol the polls.
And you're damn right. We're going to have ICE surround the polls come November. We're not going to sit here and allow you to steal the country again.
Trump has said he wants to nationalize the midterm elections.
We should take over the voting. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting.
Chaque État gère ses élections comme il l'entend, avec les règles qu'il entend. M. Trump veut centraliser tout ça, surtout dans une quinzaine d'États, probablement des États démocrates.
And he wants to end birthright citizenship, which is unconstitutional. So we're watching a systematic takeover. He's replacing the federal structure by people loyal to him and not the Constitution. That's what happens under fascism, is you take over the institutions and then they change the laws.
Do you think Donald Trump is going to stay in power?
If he was 70, he'd be dictator for life and, without a doubt. But he's 79. So that means the Republican Party, the MAGA movement, has to move on without him at some point. I'm not sure the coalition that he's assembled can hold together under anyone else. Maybe we will have a return to some form of democracy.
What do you think the next steps are for the US right now?
Preparing to defend one's neighbors against the brutality that they're going to be facing, to strategize defending the elections. We see in Minneapolis the strength of resistance. The important thing is that the world has to stand up against the United States. The United States is the greatest threat to freedom on earth right now.
How do you think the US political regime is impacting Canada?
Well, they're trying to take over Canada. But you have Trumpism here, you have that incursion of Trumpism, and there has to be an internal reaction to that. There has to be a rejection of, the push to hand things to rich people, the push to dismantle this system that makes Canada so democratic of health care and social welfare and care for each other. So there has to be a strong defense, not just against the United States and Trump, but against Trumpism.
Can you tell me a bit more about the idea of like creating a resistance hub here in Toronto?
I'm hoping that in 2 years' time, Canadian audiences think of themselves as a place where there's a thriving democracy and they're involved in keeping it a thriving democracy. Canada is a very popular country in the world because it stands for tolerance.
You're painting Canada to be like this beacon of democracy and of tolerance, but we have our own issues here. Like, isn't that a little rose-colored glasses vision to have?
It's an ideal of Canada, and Canada falls well short, as any country does. And Canada is a violent settler colonial country and has a lot of anti-Black racism. There's a lot of issues in Canada. But if you compare Canada to other countries, they have, I think, much less of a chance of getting to that point.
Do you still stand by that decision of coming here?
I don't know whether it was the right decision yet. It depends on the future of Canada, and it depends upon what I can do in Canada. If I can help to make Canada the place that the world looks to for democracy, if I can help U.S. democracy, then my decision will have been the right one.